Hey there, Bulls and Goals. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here on a Monday, knowing Joe Bob's not going to air on a Friday and life sucks.
That's true. The last drive-in lived up to its name for a minute.
Dude, it's been a good season. That was a great season.
It has been a really good season. It's really good watching something that's the people who are making it, it's so known to them, like so second nature, so habit. Joe Bob has been doing this for so long in its various incarnations, but also still tweaking it, still making it fresh, still, because this season feels a lot different than the first season. Right? Like something this old concept shouldn't be changing this much between seasons. But this season was kind of emotional.
I love everyone on that crew. In fact, you know how I know. So like, I don't think I watched like the first big couple ones that he had before like the series came out.
Sure.
Like I was excited to get to them and all that stuff. But when we started like building the habit of watching it over the weekend, I was like, okay, this is great. But it was the last episode of season 1 where they did Prom Night 2.
Yep.
And I remember working on like film sets and being like, when I'm a director one of these days, I'm going to do this big thing to give a crew shout out, dreaming big, like it'd be great because everyone works so hard because I was a PA and that's the lowest of the low. So you're thinking high. And then the ending of season 1, they fucking did it. Yep. They did the cute ass little prom thing. Yep. And then they shout out the whole crew. And like, I got like super emotional watching because like, you saw the camaraderie on this thing. And I think season 2, like they went in with that energy and just fucking nailed it.
Totally. And what's really cool about that is because you just articulated the one half that I was missing on what I was trying to explain was, so the casts in Ed Wood Productions also had camaraderie. But the movies were terrible.
Yeah.
So when quality or someone's working at a high level matches that, and then you get to see the camaraderie behind the scenes and they're doing really, really good work, and they kind of feed off each other because the power of that, you don't get to see those things presented in real time most of the time. Right. Most of the time you watch a David Fincher movie and then you watch a documentary about the making of it 10 years later and you realize the cast was having a great time, but you don't know the cast was having a great time while you're watching the movie.
Right.
With Joe Bob, that prom night episode was great. Mm-hmm. He was on all cylinders. The trivia, the intro, the fact that they went with that movie itself, the explanations he gave in between, like all of it, he's working at such a high level and Darcy's doing great stuff. And then to have it get emotional, like, or do something really cool at the end of it, after you just experiencing something really good, makes it so cool.
And the fact that he did it again at the end of this season, like, I love that that's the trend. Is like you end it on
I'm not sure Frogtown matched up.
Well, no, not the movie. No, Frogtown. So like. We watched the first movie, and then Frogtown came on, and I was like, my friends are online playing games. I'll play with them, and I'll have this on the second monitor. And then I just kept like looking over at the monitor, going, "Is the shit I'm seeing really, really going down?" Yes. But then after that, him ending it on this like, it sort of reminded me of like whenever I see these like Rod Serling kind of quotes, like they're touching on like. It's just a very emotional ending that you don't get in any other. At the end of Creep Show, the creeper's not going to come up there and be like, "By the way, boys and girls, times might be tough." But
exactly right.
There's no message like that, and it's really hard to do something as emotional. It's weird to be talking about The Last Drive-In and talking about how emotional.
No, it isn't even starting to get weird. Wait till you hear what I'm about to say. Go ahead.
It's easy for people to do something like that, and it feels ham-fisted,
yes.
And it's sort of like, oh my, like whenever like those celebrities come out with a video, not like they did that last one, they were taking accountability for racism.
That's
like,
the opposite of what you want.
You're like I just see actors who like want to just have their image on screen for more time. Like if you want to do change, just do the fucking change. Like we believe you.
Yep.
But when he talks like about like the season 1 was the prom thing, giving a shout out to the crew, and the fact that like they had the few drive-ins come out and then the season 1 and it was like super successful, like that celebration at the end, like we were just talking about Star Wars celebration, like it felt kind of like that, like
it
this
totally
is like
did. Everyone gets a medal.
But in season 2, hearing about the ride that he's been on, like I was almost thinking like they should just make a movie
right.
about his journey, because the way he was talking about it was so story-like and
it was
moving.
So interesting. And like, you know, we had a side podcast of this podcast called Criterion, which was classic movies, but Criterion Collection was the category for that. Right. So the movie that Joe Bob tells the story at the end of the metaphor for the thing where he goes, I can only tell this the plot of a movie, is Sullivan's Travels, which is a Criterion Collection film, right? So it kind of butts up against this podcast because, I mean, that's if you picked a movie from the Criterion Collection, we're automatically going to like you. We did a whole podcast on it. Mm-hmm. But the fact that he was explaining that kind of through the metaphor of a movie, first of all, it's perfect for him being like the movie obsessed. Mm-hmm. Like it's like he's made out of movies, right? Like it's his fundamental ingredient.
That was also great.
But the other thing is that there's a real sadness to what he does, right? Like, and he's honest with it. He's like, there's this melancholy tone underneath a lot of what he does, which is it really, in a weird way, it reminds me of Elliot in Big Lebowski, the mustache cowboy.
Oh yeah,
right? Because there's a sparseness or a sadness in the thing, and when he was like. So here, you know, it makes me sad. I love The Last Drive-In, and it's continuing. And he's like, when I look back on my journey, like, I thought I was going to do something with my life. Like, write a book or, you know, do whatever. But I'm just doing The Last Drive-In, like, whatever. And the fact that he's be honest about, I'm still, I think his skeptical side is the thing I like the best. And he's skeptical even of himself. Mm-hmm. And he's skeptical even of this nostalgic moment while the moment's happening, right? And I think that is like, it's a magical moment because even when he gets happy, like he's a little sad, and it makes it interesting, right? Yeah. Instead of just someone celebrating at the end of something.
It's not nearly as sad as I couldn't remember if it was in Best Worst Movie, the Troll 2 documentary. Mm-hmm. Wasn't there that guy who was like, I've done nothing with my life, and yes. I'm okay with that?
The guy who played the grandfather in Troll 2.
Oh, that was super heartbreaking.
And then it flashed at the end when they were doing catch up, and they were like, they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're like, he's retired.
he's still doing him. It's not nearly as sad as that.
No, it's not as sad as
that guy's life.
No, it's just a tone. It's tonal, but it's the kind of thing that makes like blues music what it is, right? Like it's just
honest.
There's an added tone in there, and he's got it, and it's so natural to him, and it's really interesting to watch. Yeah, and that I think that's part of it. Takes him by surprise because he's more interesting to watch than I think he would guess he would be. Right, from his own skeptical side. Right. He's probably in his heart. He's probably like just a cowboy out here talking shit about movies, like, you know, whatever. Like, but he's interesting by default, and his choices were interesting. Like they picked Heather's.
I think that was one of the craziest, most awesome choices ever, because I mean, we've ran Hollow Weekly for like 3 or 4 years now, and like anytime you post something that's like, well, it used to be this way, but luckily we had to morph the audience. Right. If it's not 80s slasher, it's not horror.
Right.
You know, so the fact that he would do something like Heather's and like educate the people, like, hey, listen, this is a fucked up movie.
Right.
And it was going to be even more fucked up.
Right.
But they wouldn't allow it. Right. So give this shit a shot.
Right. And the fact that I think one of the things that's fascinating is so anyone who's like into film or artistic things in kind of a certain way will recognize the list, you know, feeling. Like you love a good list. You want to put things in a hierarchy. What was the best jump scare? What was the best? And you're built into this, you know, this listing feeling, you know, whatever. And you can tell with Joe Bob that he respects influence. Influence is something he really respects. Like the things that influence things in ways that he respects, that he thinks make things. And you could tell that he respected what Heathers did going forward, even after the release of the movie, right? And maybe the secret category in his head of Last Drive-In isn't, because it was never just horror movies, obviously, because B movies are never just horror movies. You've got bad thrillers and bad, you know, action movies and bad, like, you know, whatever. So it was never just a pure horror proposition anyway, right? So you didn't really have to explain it that much. But I think his secret thing is influence in there. I think he loves that. And when he goes back and talks about movies like, what was your date movie? Like Deadbeat by Dawn or something like that they did this year?
Oh,
The one,
yeah, Deadbeat by Dawn, yeah.
Right, like even when he was talking about that, he was talking about the influence how they were influenced when they were making it. You're watching this, to my eyes, pretty shitty movie where like some terrible things are happening and they're terribly filmed.
As someone who's worked with crew members of that film,
sorry.
No, I mean it's crazy. Like he was naming like people like Mike King, who like I've worked with. He named who's a cinematographer in Dayton. He named Wright State and the dropout rate that true. I'm a percentage of, and I'm one of the more successful people out of that program.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, that's the thing is, and the fact that he would give that amount of background and track what the influence is means that I think that's part of what really excites him about art and movies and talking about them, right? And I respect that because it gives him a through line. He's always going to be passionate about that, which is cool, which is really cool.
I mean, there's not a part of the program that like I don't look forward to.
Right.
Like the opening monologue is going to be great, and some of the movies, like if they are as bad as Deadbeat by Dawn, I'm looking forward to the intermissions of him. Right. I was like, okay, so explain to me why I needed to see this, and then he delivers. He gives you a story, and you go, oh, that guy did all of his stunts hanging out of a window.
Totally.
Like, okay, that's crazy. So now moving forward, when he does something crazy, like I have this information.
Now, in all honesty, right? Like in honor of Joe Bob. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he was born to be an interviewer, right? So the interview segments, I feel like, I don't know about these sometimes. I don't know if I'm always looking forward. I'm always looking forward to the interview because the funny thing is he's such an organic, real like person. You can even see it in real time. And I think part of what's really amazing about Last Drive-In is it feels like it's real and it could get really real fast. Like it feels like it could just break.
Right.
It feels like the camera could cut out for 2 minutes, or like something could happen, like whatever. And it's not about their professionalism. It feels like maybe they would be so focused on something really important to them over here, they would just miss something fundamental over here, and that could still happen with them. It makes them interesting, right? That they're not so prepackaged and so pre-planned and so pre-polished that nothing dangerous could ever happen.
And like there's a few times when he's interviewing someone, like you can see him start to smirk, and I'm like, oh, this is way more interesting than anything else. Because any other interview is like, so when you were filming Sleepaway Camp 12, it's a boring question. But the way he has a conversation with.
Well, I think all of that is good. The reason that it makes me wince sometimes is I feel like that for some reason, I don't know why, he's really gifted at reading movies, but I'm not sure how good he is at gifted at reading people in real time as they speak. Because there's a lot of times that they're about to get to the most interesting part of a thing, and he just says something movie related and blasts it out like away, and they never get to the end of the story. And I don't think he notices that they never got to the end of their story. Like, I don't know how that works. I think he's just an enthusiast,
right?
But I think it's to me, it's a part of the show that might get better, but to me, it's also part of the thing that makes it feel really real, which is probably part of what makes a big part of what makes it special. Right.
Let me ask you this, and you might not know this off the top of your head, but like out of season 2, what was the most enjoyable film?
So,
is there one?
I think the most enjoyable film to me was Hellraiser 2, and I think that was just because I loved. In that one, it's funny you mentioned that one, because in that one, not only did I love the movie, I love how they fought for the movie, where they did. I actually loved the interview segment in that one. And I just found Ashley Lawrence and Bradley fascinating in terms of their byplay with each other and kind of in that atmosphere. They were almost talking in hushed tones, like they were in a monastery. It was weird. It was creepy. It felt like Pinhead was lurking somewhere behind them, like in the background.
Like his
or
PR rep. He's like, don't say the wrong thing. Don't say the wrong thing.
But they were talking quieter than they've done in other episodes, where I'm like, are they trying not to alert like the demons? It gave it a spooky-ish vibe, which I really appreciated. So I actually loved all of that, and I love the Heathers episode.
Heathers was good.
That was fantastic. What about you?
So.
You're going to say this fucking Troma's War, aren't you?
No.
Okay.
I think Dead Heat.
Dead Heat. Oh, yeah. That would have been my other.
I think Dead Heat's my number 2.
Yep.
I think Dead Heat was really fun, really interesting. And it's so weird because who's the guy that was in it? He's like a political dude now. What's his fucking name? The jacked sidekick.
Yeah.
Joe Piscopo. Yeah.
Joe Piscopo.
After watching that movie, I started seeing him pop up in places, but it was like political shit, and then you're like, oh no, Joe Piscopo, oh man. But then like he would say some dumb shit, but like he kind of has that voice and that look to himself. You're like, I kind of forgive you, but like your views kind of suck, but like Daddy was pretty cool. So I don't know how I feel about myself right now. No, but I think so. This is the reason why I think I am so enamored with The Last Drive-In.
Yes,
is because of the Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. Okay. I've never been a Hellraiser guy.
Right.
Never ever been a Hellraiser guy. Never got into it. In fact, whenever I think of things that make me like, I forget who it was. Someone from like Bloody Disgusting talked about like wasting your money on Disney stuff, and then I was like, but horror fans buy Pinhead bobbleheads at horror conventions, right. And for some reason Pinhead was unfair. He was unfairly the target of my head because I for some reason I never got into Hellraiser. So for unfortunately Doug Bradley,
right, that was
it, right. Which wasn't really fair, to be honest. But because of Hellraiser 2 Hellbound.
Well, and to give context, your age bracket is the age bracket that missed all of that. You were just after Hellraiser like blew up, right? That was not.
Well, even growing up, like with knowing the 80s slashers, like I did, like Jason, Freddy were always the first two, and then followed for Michael, and then it would go to like Leatherface, and then by that time Saw was coming out, so it'd be Jigsaw,
right?
And all these other.
That's what I'm saying.
Missed. So
it was like a blind spot from a car.
Yeah, it's like if I was a lifeguard and someone was drowning, I wouldn't see it. Like exactly. you know that test where you show a video, they're like someone's drowning in this video. I'm like, I don't see anyone, and just Pinhead's like, fucking help. I'm like,
well, he's got metal in his head. He's heavier. Than
he's gonna sink a little more. Maybe not as much as Leatherface, because I don't think that dude knows how to.
He's also punctured, so he's probably leaking.
That's right. So that's how I always viewed Hellraiser. Yeah. In fact, I remember my dad watching Hellraiser, and I remember telling him like, "Oh, I think it's too much for me at this age," but really I was just bored,
right?
Because it wasn't like a night.
You're just trying to get out of it. Yeah.
I was just trying to get out of it, so I never really gave it a second shot. We did watch Hellraiser eventually, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is a good movie." I still don't know if Hellraiser is my favorite thing, but fucking Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. Sold the shit out of it. And I think the most of it was him talking to Doug Bradley, and the lead actress' name is
Ashley Lawrence.
Ashley Lawrence. Yep. I'm new to the franchise.
That's right.
And two, I think he was saying that some people think it's a better movie, and I know you think the first one's probably.
I think it's. I can see the argument for both. I think the first one's a little bit better.
And see, what's weird is I agree with you, but I think there's more memorable scenes in it
definitely
too. But I'm telling you, after this,
but it's like the difference between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Right.
I mean, you're almost comparing apples to oranges.
Exactly, which is funny because I think we would flip on that. I like Evil Dead 1 a little more. But I'll be honest, dude, ever since the last drive-in season finale happened, I went on the Hellraiser rabbit hole, dude.
You did.
I loved that scene when the crazy dude was on the bed.
Sherrod.
Well, I loved him transforming into a Cenobite.
Yes.
Like, I still think that's probably one of the most dopest fucking lines in a horror movie I've ever heard, and to think I hesitated.
Yep.
Like, and what's funny is that line like burned into my brain. Like for like the week, like I don't think we like you were gone. I'd be in the kitchen just like getting water and shit like that, and I just would think of that line and get sick to my stomach. I'm like, some fucking asshole thinks that's good, that you want to be one of those fucking freaks. Ugh. And he's so sure about it. Yeah. I would be like, no fucking way, that's dude. Amazing. I'm going to the opposite place of this. I'm going to In-N-Out. I don't give a fuck. I'm getting out of here. That
is so interesting.
It made me so enamored with the idea, and that fucking made me enamored with the idea of the Cenobites. Yep. So then I'm going down the fucking Cenobite rabbit hole, learning about Chatterbox and all the other fucking crazy, the chick with the throat and the fat dude.
You haven't even gone down the Nightbreed rabbit hole, which will happen next.
No, so then I'm watching all this Hellraiser stuff, and I'm buying the world and the music. Oh, I think it was like 2 days after that, I loaded up the soundtrack to Hellraiser 2 on my phone, and I was like, before I go to bed, I usually make cold brew, so it brews for like 8 to 12 hours, and then I'll wake up, I got a big fresh pot of cold brew, and I went to go make it, and I'm pouring the water, and I'm listening to the soundtrack, and then I just went, I have to fucking stop. Like, I cannot continue. Like if it's scaring me. Good. Like, and like we were talking about this. There's few things in this world that like will make me be like, you know what? from horror films, like I gotta stop. And the soundtrack was one of them. Regan's face is one of them, and Hellraiser 2 Hellbound soundtrack, and that noise they use in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that noise. Those three things.
And the degloving from Gerald's game.
Yeah, the degloving from Gerald's game.
Yep.
And so I just fell down this rabbit hole, and then I watched this video of Pinhead throughout all of his incarnations, even like on Simpsons episodes. And then what was interesting about that is seeing how Pinhead has been portrayed and how it's just progressively got worse. But then on the very last one, they sort of got one thing right. Here's real quick. Here's how you do Pinhead right. This is from my research from a new fan of Hellraiser. One, they have to come in with the force of a hurricane. Okay, you can't just have Pinhead running around doing shit. They have to come in there. There's got to be wind. There's got to be fog. There's got to be lights coming through the door. Number two, you got to modulate his voice, but not a lot. That's the key thing. Okay, they modulated in the first one. They still did in the second one, and then they went down consecutively, down, and then until they did Judgment, which I think is the last one, they remodulated his voice, but they didn't do the wind.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So for future filmmakers,
I'm taking notes.
That's all you got to do. Lights through the cracks of the wall. Wind, fog, and it's got to be kind of dark, which they did in 2 by having him in the cool chain room.
Right. I totally agree. And you know what's kind of blowing my mind right now is, part of the magic of Pinhead was his look, obviously, is the thing that drove the popularity and how sticky that concept was, where you couldn't get out of your head. But it was that voice and that calm delivery and the authoritative delivery that made him so quotable and really put him into that top tier of icons. When you combine the look with that, you needed that. Right. For him, you needed that. Like, Michael doesn't need to say anything, obviously, for that. But like, his look alone wasn't going to get him to Michael Myers later level. But when you tie it together with that smooth, that calm delivery, like it's a perfect thing, right? So his voice is really important. And what's blowing my mind right now is there are 1,000 franchises littered on the side of the freeway that never got anywhere, that never pulled that off once, and they did it with Pinhead once. But this franchise did it twice, because you're hearing Dr. Chenard's line in your head over and over and over.
Even
again.
The
like iconic moment that just stuck with you, like whatever. So that means they did it with Pinhead once, then they did it to you again. That's 2 in one franchise.
And I think that part of the reason why I like Hellraiser 2 a little more is it felt kind of like a video game where like you have these enemies like the Cenobites and some weird shit.
Yeah, you even had like a God's eye view of them, like you would in a video game, like an amazing.
Yes, and then they throw in like the even bigger bad at the end with the doctor, and just like that scene is, aside from his like dance that he does when the Leviathan, I think that's what it's called, is stuck in his brain. It kind of reminds me of when Harry's getting shocked in Home Alone 2. Like, it kind of looks totally like that, does. So it kind of cuts out. But everything before that, like the look he gives down, like he just has this look of disgust. Oh, in the shot when he's getting into that little thing and the wires come down, and she goes, and she's talking through the all this fucking awesomeness is because Joe Bob.
Right, exactly.
Like, he made me a believer. Right. Joe Bob made me scared of hell. Because I would be listening to the soundtrack and thinking about the Cenobites, and I would start thinking about how Clive Barker envisioned hell, and it made me like sick to my stomach, and I wouldn't have had that awesome feeling if they didn't fucking show it.
And here's the thing. If we went back in a time machine,
right,
and we watched Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 at that exact same time of day, but we had only watched the movie, you and I together, you wouldn't feel this way.
Nope.
You had to get it through Joe Bob.
Nope.
There's a certain kind of movie that you have to get through a Joe Bob-like experience, and then it's like super magical that way, right? Mm-hmm. That's how it was for Prom Night 2.
Yes.
Right? Because you need someone to guide you a little in the appreciation, not what to appreciate. Right, you don't have to take his recommendations on whether this is a great scene or a great performance or great whatever. Like, make up your own mind. But it's not him pointing out the things to appreciate. It's being open to the idea of appreciating something that should, by all surface appearances, be fucking terrible or disappointing or boring based on your, like, the Hellraiser franchise. You didn't like the look of. You missed the heyday of it. Mm-hmm. So it was just like some past franchise. It would be like telling someone now, oh my God, you should go watch all the other King Kong movies, like Mighty Joe Young and King Kong Jr. Like, why would I do that? Mm-hmm. Right? It's past. I missed the moment, right?
I mean, honestly, like, if you'd asked me, like, are you a fan of Clive Barker, and I'd be like, kind of. Like, there was a video game, Clive Barker's Jericho, that came out that I really liked, but anything past that, probably not.
Right.
Now I'm singing a different tune.
Yep. Exactly right. But you would have liked Hellraiser 2 if you'd watched it with me, but not through Joe Bob. But it wouldn't be like this, and you wouldn't be down a Hellraiser rabbit hole doing all this stuff.
No, and I wouldn't be able to know how to accurately portray Pinhead.
No, exactly. And right, exactly. And he is so good at that, and that is such a service to like a fan base that catches it and pays attention to it, because there's not a lot. There are other people who could do that. I mean, there's people. Some people just have a knack. You don't know why. That's why, like, the guy who hosted the Inside the Actor Studio hosted it for 50 years because he just had a knack for doing it. Like the guy from TCM, Robert Osborne. Remember, he would like come on. He would just like name a movie. He makes me sleepy personally, but like.
It's a calming voice, though.
It is a calming voice, but you're
going to pick up a thing or two from that his cadence,
right? But it's part of the experience. Some people introduce things, and it's not part of the experience.
Just they can make anything feel old. They can just, like, I swear to God,
they just made this episode feel old because I brought it up.
The CEO is a Werther's original. You know what I mean?
Totally. That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But like, you know what's funny is we were. I think we were doing something for Criterion, and I ended up watching, or maybe we were just talking about movies, and I watched Martin Scorsese and Roger Ebert's best film of the 90s.
Yes.
And it's a really cool countdown.
Yes.
And the one thing that I noticed that Martin Scorsese said in every single pick was, it's a human story. It's a human picture.
Yep.
And that's what Joe Bob does for these films, is like he gives you the human story behind the film. And I think that is, if not equal, maybe even a little more sometimes, interesting than the film itself.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think, one thing he did, because sometimes he's unintentionally hilarious.
Right.
And one of the things he did that was hilarious to me was one of my favorite moments from season 2 was he was talking about Exorcist 3, which I should also mention was a favorite episode.
Dude,
like, that's amazing. I know we're a little Exorcist 3'd out, but it was still an amazing episode.
Yeah. No,
what were you going to say?
We made these crustless pizzas, and they were really good. And then Alex was gone, and I was like, ooh, Joe was on. And he showed Exorcist 3? I was like, what if I made a whole fucking pan of this pizza? I didn't spray it. And so all the cheese looked to the bottom, so I just ate hot toppings, and I was really disappointed. And then I got spooked out from Exorcist 3. It was a terrible fucking night. I was scared and hungry.
Not one of your favorite episodes,
no, Joe Bob was my only comfort.
Exorcist 3 is one of the very few movies from its era that can still terrify you.
It's still unsettling.
You don't
think it is, but then by the end of it, you're like, oh, I feel something different.
Yeah, no, that's a movie that stays in the room with you for.
Anyway, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, I wanted to know. But so the thing is, there was this moment in this movie when it cuts back from one of the transitions. Like, obviously, when it cuts back from the famous jump scare scene, he tells you all the info about the jump scare and all that stuff, like you would do, right? Then it cuts back from this one moment, and he's talking, and then he just kind of rambles to a stop, and then he goes, "I should mention the score. There's no score." And the funny thing is, I think I should. It's like the framework, like a good guest would have, like a good host would have. Like if you're hosting a party, like I should have this for my guests and make sure the bathroom's clean and make sure I have food and like whatever. Like he's making this list in his head of what he should do for the show, but his list is off.
Right.
Because he's a weirdo.
Right.
Right. So he's like, it would be like, oh, I'm having a dinner party tonight. You know what I should do? I should rent a rhinoceros. That's the structure of his brain. He's got the polite good side of it. He's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Not Quite. Right. So he's got the good impulse and the good side, but when he's over here like doing the thing he thinks he should do, it's suitably weird to be interesting and funny and memorable, even though he thinks he's probably hitting straight hits a lot of time, and then everyone's like, it reminds me of one of my favorite stories of a musician ever, which was the Kristen Hirsch of the Throwing Muses, which is an amazing band. But when they started out, they would play out for audiences, and the lead singer and songwriter, she would come back and ask the band like how it was. She thought they were a surf music party band. but she was basically writing music like Satanic Pearl Jam sounding. So when they would play out, the audiences would have horrified faces. And then she'd be like, they're not having a good time. We're playing all this party music. And her band finally turned to her like, do you think you're writing party music?
Hold up.
Because you're not. Right? And I feel like that happens with Joe Bob sometimes, where he thinks he's giving us a certain kind of episode, but what he's giving us is actually something so much more interestingly like off than he meant, and that's magic. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And this season, I like what they did with Scare Package.
Yes.
That being one of my favorite. Like, I'm a big anthology dude, and so good anthologies, dude, are so hard to come by.
Nothing feels like them. Nothing hits like an anthology.
But when it's right,
oh yeah, I know.
And Scare Package did it right. I mean, there's so many that just suck.
Yep.
Like, you watch it and you're waiting for that one, like that one story to just really like sell you on it. Scare Package did it like 4 times.
Yeah, first of all, it sells itself out of the gate, which is helpful. Some of them start slow and then get better, but this one was hitting home runs right out of the gate. Matter of fact, most of the strongest stuff in the whole movie, I think, are front loaded. I think you see a lot of the good stuff.
Even the ones that aren't that interesting, like the ones that I didn't really connect with, they're still not bad.
No, there's one fucking terrible one in there. I can't remember which one, but I remember hating the shit out of one of them. But you're right. I mean, I think there was a lot of bad ones. The thing was, it was interesting enough because part of an anthology, let's be honest, an anthology is the feeling of sitting around a campfire when someone's telling you a story.
Right.
And you want to be in a master storyteller's hands a lot of time. You want that John Houseman at the beginning of The Fog. Perfect tone, feeling like they've told this story 1,000 times or whatever. But there's also the Friday the 13th style where the storyteller is leaving out important details and you might get killed while he's talking.
The storyteller gets killed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Something might break out like in real time. And Scare Package felt like that. It felt like you were watching something and the next segment could be really amazing or really aggravating, but that was fun because
right. And having Joe Bob in between all of them.
Yes, totally.
That was like the biggest change up episode that they've did, and I thought that was so refreshing. And I remember we looked back at each other probably 3 or 4 times. We were like, they should do this more often.
Yeah, well, I think the pandemic caused this. I don't think that was the plan for this movie to premiere in this way. But if I'm
a horror filmmaker, dude, they're like, you're going to premiere on the last drive-in. Yep.
Yeah, especially if you're Scare Package.
That's how we do it.
Probably exactly where they belonged. But you're totally right. And that, to be honest with you, to give Joe Bob credit, because I don't think he gives himself enough credit. I think he undersells himself with his inner skepticism, like whatever. But that shouldn't work on paper. To have a host jumping in with segments in the middle of an anthology movie that has 9 segments should not work.
Right. Because anthologies themselves do not work.
Right. That should be frustrating as shit.
Right.
But it should be broken up like 6 Ways to Sunday. But this was not. Like it was one of the better episodes, which is cool.
No, I really liked it.
Yeah, kudos to that whole I hate when it's off season. I love when it comes back. Like it's one of the few calendar things a horror fan
I know. They usually do like 1 or 2 special drive-ins. Like they did Christmas and then they did Halloween and Thanksgiving. So hopefully we can still get those. In the meantime. And
honestly, we haven't even touched on a big part of why the show works, which is Darcy, right? So and to me, when you have, first of all, there's this amazing unpredictability that's happening, like inside the show. Like all the pieces that are moving in there are.
Well, she'll get like banned from Twitter for commenting too much. So
So
like we follow her, and then the backup account where the drive-in's going on.
Totally. And the other thing is, I think to me, it's interesting to see how everything is affecting the experience. I remember there was this moment inside of like, first of all, Hogzilla was amazing, right? That whole experience was amazing. But to me, what happens is you get this incredibly unpredictable moment where you think there might be a real argument happening in real time right in front of you,
right,
between 2 people who are supposed to be talking to you but might actually just be talking to each other and forgetting that there's a show going on. And you don't get that feeling in many places anymore. anymore. Everything is so
it's so
produced.
Yeah,
right.
You're like, oh, they're faking it.
No, yeah, no. It feels.
There's
like,
a few times where you're like, what's going on with this?
It feels
show?
like there might be real conflict or real like strong support. Like, and you don't get that feeling either. Like, when's the last time you were watching a show that had people like a panel basically, where two people on the panel you felt like were like ride or die, so strong for each other, right? And you don't get that feeling. Like, where else are you getting that feeling in real time anywhere? Not many places.
There's not like hardly any shows that give me the same feeling watching The Last Drive-In,
right?
Because like the countdown, like the hour-long countdown they do with the music, and then it starts trending on Twitter.
Yep.
I still don't know why Shudder doesn't release like all their originals Joe Bob style, like Creepshow.
Yeah, that
because Creepshow would come out like 7:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? What? No. I'm asleep, dude. Try again at like 8.
You can't Creepshow me at this time of day. That's hilarious.
No, I love the show.
Well, I mean, last thing is honestly, I love that it's built in the name. I love that when one of your strengths is unpredictability, and you literally had the word "last" in it because you thought the first time you did it was going to be the last time this ever happened, and then it just keeps happening.
It's pretty badass.
It's absolutely amazing. Like, there's something happening there.
It's pretty badass. And then the only other thing that we have to cover was Joel Schumacher.
Ugh,
that sucks.
It's sad, and then it just got sadder because he's one of those sneaky motherfuckers. Like, I was sad when I heard about it. Then I started to look at what he really had done and what the movies I kind of forgot he was the person behind, and then I got sadder. Like, to get sad is one thing, but then the next day to be worse.
Yeah, when Robin Williams died, you knew what was gone. You're like, all right, there goes the Genie, there goes Jumanji.
Yep.
Joel Schumacher, you're like, okay, there goes Lost Boys.
Yep.
There goes Batman and Robin. Yep. And then the next day you're like, Falling Down. He did Falling Down?
Right.
Oh, that sucks. Right? I didn't know he did Falling Down.
Right, and the fact that it turns out that he had such a pretty consistent aesthetic, which you don't get much anymore. But a Joel Schumacher movie was a Joel Schumacher movie, so there was that as well. It was pretty sad. But he's before your time, so I mean, you
kind of not really. I mean, I grew up with watching
he was your Batman.
Yeah, he was the Batman. So we grew up watching Tim Burton's Batmans because we already had those on VHS when we were kids. But when it came to new Batman, I had more Batman and Robin toys growing up.
Right.
I had his Batmobile. In fact, I was when he died, I was starting to think about. I was looking at all the Batman and Robin stuff, and I forgot how much Batman and Robin merchandise I had over those two movies. Shit. I had all the T-shirts, I had all the toys, I had Mr. Freeze.
Wow.
I even think we had the I think Burger King had cups, Batman cups. But we had those for 10 years after the movie came out. Like the Lord of the Rings one. We just kept even the McDonald's Disneyland cups. We had those, but I remember the Riddler one, having the Riddler one and the Batman one.
Yeah.
So we had all that shit. In fact, someone even was on Twitter. There's a lot of people on Twitter. Was someone who said, controversial opinion, Batman and Robin is better than The Dark Knight Rises. And I know you love The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, no, they're not even close.
But
I can see the I can see why.
But in my opinion, if you I wanted to try to want to watch The Dark Knight Rises again. Right. I've only seen it once. I've seen The Dark Knight 12 times.
That was such an interesting sentence.
Yeah, I can't convince myself to trick myself to watch this movie because I just didn't find it interesting. Right. But I was like, if you ask me right now, Batman and Robin, Dark Knight Rises, I'm gonna watch Batman.
Batman and Robin is so much more fun, but this is like comparing Jaws to Jaws 3D.
Yeah, I know the scale of quality, diminishes.
Right.
But I think it's a testament.
But that's
to the
not
film
obvious
itself.
with Joel Schumacher. I would argue that almost any movie. I would argue that Falling Down is considerably better than Dark Knight Rises.
Right.
Right. He was capable of those kind of heights. Right. And I think Batman Forever is actually way better than people first thought it was when it came out. I still don't have a lot of hope for Batman and Robin.
They're still fun though. But I'll tell you this: I've only seen Lost Boys maybe twice.
Right.
but I've been to Santa Cruz. Actually, I've been to Santa Cruz twice.
Yep.
And every time I go there, I can't help but think of like fucking vampires,
not.
dude. And it's weird to be there.
Right.
Even like us, they're at that boardwalk.
Yeah.
And I'm still thinking of vampires
Totally.
when I'm there.
But I'll tell you, it's funny you saying that because there are large categories of people and then there are small categories of people, right? Like the number of people on the planet who have ever been NFL football coaches has got to be like less than 1,000, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty elite kind of set. And I think the myth makers, the people who made myths, like when you were in ancient Greece, like most of the people were like fishing and getting olives or doing whatever they're doing, talking to Socrates.
Making this gross dressing. I sent you a YouTuber, Tasting History. He makes dishes from like those times. Actually, wait, I think this was like a Roman fish sauce.
Yes,
but I can imagine it in Greece.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure they had some terrible food, right?
Yeah.
So most people were doing that, but there was one person who looked up in the sky and was like, "That's where Zeus lives," and started telling the story about like Poseidon and we're still making movies with like people like Thor and like whatever, not Greek, but the same idea, right? So like there is a very small set of people who can make up stories and they become myths, right? Edgar Allan Poe was like that for horror, right? And Joel Schumacher with Lost Boys, that movie is mythical.
Right.
Like you made a myth. I don't care what anyone else says about you at any point. Like that's like winning the Super Bowl. That's like a ring. Like no one can take that away. Lost Boys was a myth for a generation plus, probably. Right. Mm-hmm. Like that movie had so many unforgettable moments and images and ideas and like. No, you're in a really elite group when you do something like that, and that's what he's done. So.
And I think more important than all that, one for him, we probably wouldn't have Seal's "Kiss from a Rose," and that song is
true legacy.
That song is great, dude. I remember they were always playing that song in the Warner Brothers store. Back in the day, you remember the Warner Brothers?
I do.
They had like gremlins and shit.
Oh my god!
On the rafters.
I can picture the whole story.
You walk in there, da 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 da. You're like, there it is.
That is so
There's
true.
Seal.
That was everywhere.
So I think he spanned quite.
So
a lot.
he gave us that too, and but he also gave us the completely. You don't get to give this weird award as a description to a movie often, but. The Restless Falling Down. That movie is restless. That movie will not stay in one category or one, stance. Like when I first saw that movie compared to how I feel about that movie now, is so miles apart.
Let me ask a question. Mm-hmm. When it comes to white dudes going angry, which do you prefer, Falling Down or Joker?
Falling Down.
Wow.
And I, the thing is, I really like Joker. Like, it's not a knock against Joker. It's just more that I think first of all, I think Falling Down is more interesting. Like, just from the whatever.
Even the poster's great.
The message. The poster.
Just the city behind
the poster is great. But like I was just saying about making myths. I mean, there were I've talked about this on this podcast so many times, but there are so many movies that were really good, right? That I walk out of, and if you ask me to picture scenes from them 2 weeks later, one or two scenes might come to mind, right? But Falling Down was one of those movies where every scene came to mind.
Right.
Like when you walked out of that movie and you thought about it the week after, any scene you could you could have just gone up to someone who'd seen Falling Down and a week later been like, golf cart scene, right? And they'd be like, I know.
And you know how many times growing up, I'm glad McDonald's and all them finally got their issues in order. But how many times like I would wake up and be like, I can make it.
Right.
I can make it. And then I roll up to McDonald's and it's the fucking lunch menu. I'm like, it is 11.
Right?
You serve breakfast till noon like a normal person.
Right. That's exactly right.
Lunch is for 1 o'clock.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. There was an old saying there was a Russian writer named Nikolai Gogol, and he was like he would be like kind of their Tim Burton, right? Mm-hmm. And they said about him that when you read his stories, your eyes became Gogolized, they called it. You saw the world like through his eyes for 2 days after you read one of his books.
Right.
Like he was the filter you saw things through. And I swear to God, like Falling Down, you couldn't go into a restaurant and get aggravated for the 2 years after you saw that movie without thinking of that dude standing there in that restaurant. Like the scene, movie just would just come into your head. Like it was an unstoppable force. So
I gotta be honest, I can't even watch that scene without smelling like the fake cheese,
right?
Like the microwave biscuits,
right?
And get real hungry. I'm like, I'm starving right now. So R.I.P.
So yeah,
Joel Schumacher.
Much late.
That was kind of. It was really kind of an unexpected death too.
It was.
I mean,
it was.
I mean, I guess every death is not really expected.
I don't even know how old he was. Probably 79, 80, I think.
I don't know. I mean, he looked old, but he's always looked old. I think that's why it was shocking to me because like there's some people who just like my pap. He always looked old.
Right.
Like there's photos of me like fresh born, like a day old. I'm like, he looks like he's 80, and then he dies. He looks like he's 80. I'm like, how were you 80 for 25
you were 80
years?
The whole time. But you're right. It is unexpected, especially since, like we were talking, Bob Dylan, as we speak, recording this, just dropped a new album. I think he's the same age Joel Schumacher was. Like you don't until you hear someone sick or whatever. Nowadays, nowadays they might be up to something.
Yeah,
like Bob Dylan.
Kim Jong Un was dead for like a week. You know what I'm saying? Then he pulled a fast one. It's crazy.
We gotta end on that. That's amazing.
All right. Well, you know what? Don't kill us. Give us a review on iTunes.
Yes, exactly.
Stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. See you guys next time. Bye.